First on the agenda, I would like to recognize and welcome Pastor Christopher Metz, St. Luke's Lutheran Church, to deliver the invocation.
Okay, right here.
Anywhere you would like, sir. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Honor me with y'all. Let us pray. Good and gracious God, as we gather this evening, we thank you for this nation of ours and all the blessings we enjoy as citizens. On this day of election, we ask that you would keep this nation under your merciful care. Help us in the power of your Spirit to elect trustworthy and honorable leaders. Preserve us from dissension and strife. And lead us to be united in the shared commitment to service to you and to one another. We thank you also for the city of Monroe and for all those gathered here. Bless this council, inspire them with your wisdom, that they may fulfill their duties in accordance with your will and for the sake of those whom they serve. We ask all this in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you joining us tonight. Okay, at this time, if everybody would please rise and join me for the pledge of
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, I am going to recognize our HR Director, Deborah Reed, to introduce the Citizens Academy graduates.
Good evening, President, City Council. Thank you all so much for allowing us to share our excitement about our graduates for 2022. The program started back in 2009. We actually missed 1 year, and so this is the 12th graduating class. They have been interesting to work with and enjoyable. And so just want to share a couple of insights with you before we introduce the graduates. Monroe City Citizens Academy is an opportunity for Monroe citizens, employees, those who might work in the city, have worked in the city in the past, to get an opportunity to understand the operation of the city of Monroe and see the dedication that the employees put into their jobs and understand how each organization and department within the city actually operates. The program starts every September, and we meet on Monday from 5:30 and sometimes roughly about 7:30, but it has gone over. Sometimes we have a lot of questions. But I also want to make mention of the Diversity Advisory Committee, which provides support for the Human Resources Department and the city manager in terms of trying to show that we have a diverse group and there's representatives from all departments. They help to support us in our efforts to be diverse and to go out with the community. And we do this in a way of interacting with the community, education, communicating our organization and to the community so that they can help understand it. So I want to really thank each and every one of the diversity committee. I have quite a few guys. Just kind of raise your hand so they can see who you are. So this is a group that helps us get these going and for all the programs that we're able to provide. So, not delaying this process, we have one of our graduates who is not able to make it tonight, and that is Marissa Blackwell. So Marissa has an emergency and she cannot make it with us tonight. Our next graduate will be Philip Bowers. You can stand here and get that picture. Ellen Dowling. Donna Campbell-Martinez. And then we have Lisa Turner. Jennifer Wagner. Danica. So, this is our graduating class for 2022. Can we just give them a round of applause?
Again, congratulations to all of our graduates of that program. This time, I'll recognize Ashley Ivy to introduce the annual comprehensive financial review.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'm Ashley Ivy in the Finance Department. I'm here tonight to let you all know the city's financial audit for the fiscal year in June 30th, 2022 has been completed and approved by the local government division. So tonight we have a member of the audit firm, Martin Starnes and Associates, to go over some of the highlighting results of the audit report. Typically, we have a printed book of the financial audit for you now. That is currently in the process with our print vendor, so we will have that for you as soon as possible. Hopefully sometime later next week it'll be here. But the financial report will be made available on the city's website later this week. And without further ado, I will introduce Ms. Elsa Watts with Martin Starnes and Associates.
Good evening. On behalf of Martin Starnes and Associates, I'd like to present the City of Monroe's 2022 audited financial statements. Some audit highlights. The city received an unmodified opinion. This is a clean audit opinion. I would like to thank Lisa Strickland and Ashley Ivy, as well as the rest of their staff in the Finance Department, for all their hard work on the audit this year. We work with them throughout the year. Anytime we request information from them, it's given to us timely and accurately, and we greatly appreciate that working relationship. Taking a look at your general fund, revenues for the year totaled $45.7 million. This is an increase of about 3%. Expenditures for the year were $39.3 million, an increase of about 4%, and I will detail these further along in the presentation. The LGC defines available fund balance as total fund balance less non-spendable items, less items restricted by state statute. The LGC uses this calculation to compare you to other units. Total fund balance for the general fund was $36.4 million. You had non-spendable items of $724,000 and stabilization by state statute of $9.4 million. This gives you an available fund balance calculation of $26.2 million. This is a decrease in your available fund balance of $6.3 million, which I will go over on the next slide. Your decrease in available fund balance can be attributed to the net effect of a $730,000 increase in property tax revenues, an unrestricted intergovernmental revenue increase of $1.1 million, a restricted intergovernmental revenue decrease of $723,000, and a stabilization by state statute increase, which was due to increase in encumbrances from the prior year of $2.9 million. The encumbrances increased mainly due to the role of funds related to paving contracts. Property taxes for the general fund were 54%. Sales and services were 10%. Unrestricted intergovernmental revenues were 31%. And restricted intergovernmental revenues were 4%. And you had other revenues of 1%. Property taxes were at $24.5 million, an increase of about 3%, overall very comparable. Your unrestricted intergovernmental revenues were $14.3 million. This is an increase of about 9% due to increase in sales tax revenues due to a strong economy. Sales and services were $4.5 million, an increase of about 51%. This increase is due to increases in building permits due to growth and development in the city, an increase in the use of the golf course and ballroom, and the Center Theater opened in fiscal year 22 as well. Expenditures for the general fund, you had public safety at 57%, transportation at 4%, culture and recreation 12%, general government 19%, and debt service was 8%. General government expenditures were $7.2 million, an increase of about 25%. This increase is due to some legal expenses, economic incentive payments, and an increase in special events related to the air show. Transportation was $1.6 million, a decrease of about 59%. This decrease is due to no paving contract in fiscal year 22 and several vacancies in the department, so less roadway and sidewalk maintenance was completed. Public safety was $22.3 million, an increase of about 2%, overall very comparative there. Culture and recreation was $4.7 million, an increase of 18%. This is an increase due to special events due to COVID restrictions lifted and additional capital outlay for a leaf collection truck. Moving on to your enterprise funds. Your water and sewer fund had unrestricted net position, which is what is available in the fund, of $48.7 million. Had an operating income of $13.8 million. The electric fund had $91.5 million in unrestricted net position and an operating income of $5.2 million. Natural gas fund had unrestricted net position of $36.9 million and an operating income of just over $5 million. The airport had an unrestricted net position of negative $1.1 million and an operating loss of $1.1 million. The non-major enterprise funds had an unrestricted net position of $1.3 million and an operating loss of $193,000. Your quick ratio, which is your current assets divided by your current liabilities, for the electric fund was 13.16, and the LGC would normally be concerned if this was less than 1. Quick ratio for your water and sewer fund was 21.54. Natural gas quick ratio was 13.61. And your quick ratio for the airport was 1.01. Your performance indicators this year, there were no red flags identified during the audit. The audit was submitted timely. And then you had a positive water and sewer net income and cash to expense ratio. That ratio was 687%. The LGC would be concerned if it were less than 16%. And the electric net income and cash to expense ratio was 150%. And again, they would be concerned if it was less than 16%. This concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Next on the agenda will be the public comment period. And at this time, I am going to Recognize Ms. Ruth Evans.
Hello, my name is Ruth Evans, and I live at 2201 Melody Drive in Helms Park. I'm here on behalf of members of the people who live in Helms Park. Helms Park was developed by my father-in-law, Monroe Helms, in the 1960s. We moved in 1974, our second home on Melody Drive. And in 1999, we built our retirement home on Melody Drive, next door to the old home. I've been a county commissioner. I know your job's not easy, but something needs to be done about the new ordinance. We understand this land will be developed, but single-family or one-story type homes, like patio homes and townhouses, would be much better for our neighborhood. We have lived with business zoning on 74, and that has not been a problem. Our main street, Wilson Avenue, is being used as a cut-through for trucks and cars going to the old 74 or Old Charlotte Highway now. Scotty Lane and Melody Drive, down in my area, in my street, is only one car wide. The other problem is water. 65 acres drains down through the ditches in my front yard. I've had pictures and I've showed you the pictures. And that water goes downstream to this property. More building and paving means more runoff. The pond will not work. I have engineers from the county and the city said they couldn't help us with our problem. We already have flooding now. The Exchange Apartments that have been talking about this property for now over a year almost started out at 241 apartments. Now they're talking about 364 or 548, which would wrap all the way around us and go out on Old 74. You know how the traffic there is bad now. General business and commercial on the same piece of property, those is not working. You need to change this. I'm here if there's any questions. I'll be glad to take questions. Thank you so much for letting me talk. Lived here all my life and stayed here.
Next, we have David Dodson.
Good evening. Appreciate you letting me speak. I'm David Dodson, 2202 Fox Hunt Drive, Monroe, North Carolina. I wanted to come speak and open comment about current cluster developments and conservation development types. In the past, when a residential developer did not meet the zoning standards for a project, they had to seek a conditional rezoning. This allowed the public, the planning board, and the city council a chance to review that application, add conditions, and to make sure the proposed development was in the best interest of the city and the citizens. That all changed with the adoption of the new UDO. The new UDO created two residential development types, two new residential development types, and conservation subdivisions and cluster developments, both of which can currently be placed on a site as small as 5 acres. So if a developer submits a conservation subdivision or a cluster development to the planning department, the planning director is authorized or required to make the following changes without public notice, public hearing, or even a city council vote. There's a reduce in cluster development lot size up to 45%, reduce a conservation subdivision's lot size by 50%, allow a conservation subdivision to qualify for special open space types, including but not limited to buffers, septic and drainage areas, special flood hazard areas, street and driveway crossings, and required drainage and utility easements. The planning director can also allow all the residences of a conservation subdivision to be placed on just 2.5 acres of a 5-acre site. She can also allow all residents of a cluster development to be placed on just 3.5 acres of a 5-acre minimum site. The planning director is authorized to choose to increase the residential density from 3 to 4 residences per acre for a cluster development without a city council vote. The planning director can also choose to approve a conservation subdivision with conditions. Again, the drastic deviation in standards for these two types do not require a public hearing, do not require a city council vote, or even a public notification, Imagine what Monroe would look like if every open space, 5 acres or bigger, has a residential development built on it. And if you think that's not possible, I would ask you to read, or in this case, listen to what the UDO says its intention is for a conservation subdivision. The intention is to provide reasonable economic use of land which may have unique environmental conditions that would otherwise make development undesirable. The citizens of Monroe are asking council to take action. There are over 200 signatures on that petition that are asking these two developments or development styles to be treated as conditional, require a public hearing, and require a council vote. I'm hoping that the city council will follow the lead of other cities, treat these two types of developments as conditional rezoning option, and if possible, council should request the planning board place the proposed text amendments that you read tonight on the next agenda for public hearing and a vote. Thank you.
Next up, we'll recognize Ms. Mary Thomas.
My name is Mary Thomas. Address is 1507B Iceman Street. My complaint still stands as when I first started coming in here, is Franklin Street. I heard the lady a while ago talking about the sidewalks and the, I guess, money value. You know, I have to get around town on a wheelchair. If I have to go by the law, these vehicles need to go by the law. I would suggest that those cameras be put back on these stoplights. Because I almost got hit crossing right over here this afternoon because 2 cars ran the stoplight. If I'd have been out there, I'd have been squished again in Monroe Road. You know, and coming down Jefferson from the old Inquiry Journal, that's a one-way street. But some cars, they come down it, they go up it. They don't care. They come down Jefferson, they come up, they hit, I think that's Franklin, going out toward 75, you know. But my concern is that sidewalk on Franklin from Charles to Huff. I go to church down there. I can't get on the sidewalk because it's not wide enough. You know? What am I going to have to do? Go higher up? You know? I'm trying to do what the law requires. You know? But I'm not getting any results from anybody. So I feel that I need to go higher to get some results in this matter. I know it takes time to do anything, but 4 months, nothing but white markings. Yeah, I spoke to him a while ago before this meeting started.
Thank you.
You know, and y'all waiting for me to get here again in this town?
Okay, next on the agenda, next on the public comment is Ms. Jennifer Smith.
Afternoon, Council. I've been designated by pretty much all the neighbors that live up and down Parker Street from Lancaster to Parker Street at Sunset. The upcoming Christmas parade's coming up, which we all love, but all the floats that are parked up and down Parker Street before they're getting ready to start the parade, that goes on for just about 2 hours. Afterwards, we are overloaded with debris, restaurant bags, dirty diapers, you name it, strewn all up and down the street, so we have to clean it all up. So really wondering if it could be help with street clearing or anything that could be done to help that we don't have to keep doing this. It's been going on for years and years and years. We're kind of tired of it. Appreciate anything to do. Thank you.
Okay, this time, we will move on to item 6 on the agenda. Rezoning request for properties located along Old Charlotte Highway, neighborhood business, residential medium density, and residential low density to additional district, Regent Pines 2022. The public hearings for the rezoning request for additional district, Regent Pines 2022 was held and closed on October 11th, 2022. At this time, I will entertain action from the council.
Make a motion to adopt the resolution approving the land use and transportation plan compliance.
Second. Okay, I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed? So if we can have someone read the next action item.
I'll read it. Motion to adopt ordinance amending code section 157.121. Second official zoning map.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And I believe we've got one more action item that needs to be read for this particular action.
Motion to adopt ordinance amending code section 157.1.3.1 zoning districts established.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Those in opposition, please raise your hand. That will pass. Okay, item 7. Doug, you got that one, I believe?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Doug Rick with Planning Department. And tonight I'm presenting a general rezoning amendment for the property located at 2733 West Resident Boulevard. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property from the conditional district Genesis Holdings to GB General Business. As you can see, the property is outlined in blue and located along West Roosevelt near Carroll Street. And this is across the street is South State Bank there in front of Rolling Hills. The subject property is currently stated it is on conditional district Genesis Holdings. Genesis Holdings was an old conditional district that was done around 2016. And what it is, there's an old existing house there. It's probably not in the best shape now. And they were requesting to have it for office uses back at that time. And like I said, it was processed conditional district and was approved, but they never acted on the conditional district. And the request tonight is to rezone it from that conditional district because the conditional district did not allow retail uses. It only allowed office uses. So they are requesting to rezone the GB. As you can see, the property here to the east is conditional district, which is the First Citizens Bank. The property to the west is an old conditional district that was done for IHOP years ago, which is on the what I call the old Rolling Hills Church property. And Back to the rear off Arnold Drive is on 2 properties that are zoned residential medium density. And then across the street is the bank, which is conditional district, and then this is the portion of Rolling Hills. The property does fall within the community corridor of the land use plan, and the request is consistent with that. Plan staff and plan board do recommend approval of the request tonight, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. And just to remind you, with the general rezone, the city cannot offer to conditions on the property, nor can the applicant developer, but basically just requesting this going from conditional district to GB, and all the uses that are allowed in the GB district will be permitted, provided they can meet all the requirements for parking, paving, stormwater, landscaping, and whatnot for the site. Now, I'll be glad to answer any questions, and the applicant's legal representative is here to make a presentation as well.
Any questions for Doug?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, Brittany Lenz, 1420 East 7th Street in Charlotte. Tonight I'm representing the Durbin Group. Mr. Britt did a good job of giving the overview. It is a general rezoning, so I'll try to be very brief with your time. But I did want to just hit a couple points to help give you some comfort and some excitement, hopefully, into what we're proposing. So property location is along Highway 74, part of that corridor. Zooming in next to the bank and the church, zooming in further, the street view. Doug was kind in saying that it is not in the best of shape. This is a dilapidated former residential home. It is not occupied. It is boarded up. It has the caving in roof right now. It is not the highest and best use for something along that corridor that's being revitalized. And you can see the bank kind of in the distance from that angle. So you can see all up and down the corridor, you do have this investment, you do have new buildings, new retail, new tax base coming up and down 74, but you don't see that at this property right now. As Doug mentioned, it is currently a conditional zoning district on this site. It's probably too small for you guys to read, but it does say in the very bottom that it is restricted to only office uses, no retail sales allowed. I think we know the 74 corridor has a lot of, it's right for retail development, it's right for more energy. Office uses could work, but this parcel is very small, and there really isn't a boutique office that makes sense or has come here, which is why it sits vacant and sits dilapidated right now. All up and down that 74 corridor, what you see, this is a conditional district, but you see in that lighter pink, is all that general business district, which is what we're requesting. So it's very consistent with what else is being redeveloped up along the roadway. The land use plan is consistent with it. I know Mr. Britt already mentioned that. I love when a land use plan tells you exactly what they want and it's consistent with what I want. And that is that commercial uses are not just an allowed use, they are a priority. So you want commercial districts here, and that's what we're requesting. That is all up and down that 74 corridor. Again, we're requesting the general business district. So that is a conventional request. There's no site plan, there's no additional conditions. But what I will tell you is that it is first consistent in what is thought of for in the area plan, but it also has protections in the ordinance already, so that we're not just, carte blanche able to build whatever we want here. There is screening and buffering requirements that are pretty stringent for the general business district. We do have that mid-density residential behind it. So there is a requirement for a wall, a 50-foot buffer, and some pretty significant plantings to protect that adjacent property. So that is guaranteed as part of the zoning. It's not any additional commitment that we feel is required because it's already built in. Also, we voluntarily did outreach to all the adjacent neighbors and the registered leaders that were as part of our zoning. This was, again, a general reason. There's no requirement to do a community meeting. There's no requirement to reach out to the community. We voluntarily did. We heard back from one adjacent property owner that is one of those residential homes. It was on Arnold Drive behind the site. Not to speak for him, but he was supportive of the endeavor. He understood the buffering, and I walked through that with him and had a great conversation where he agreed that the current use is not a good use of the site, it's potentially a dangerous use of the site, and he was supportive of our request. That was the only interaction that engaged with us, and we were happy to engage with him as well. Just real quick, and I'm almost done. Thank you all for your time. Again, just reiterating, it would replace this blighted building that is a bit of an eyesore along 74. It's investing into that corridor where you've seen so much investment come so far. It's consistent with the condition, with the land use plan. And this last one, I just want to hit on for a minute. The parcel size is 0.7 acres. And so general rezoning district, there could be a lot of things that it could be. But those more obnoxious uses are the things that you probably don't want to see there. So for example, really the biggest one that on my list, and I know the planning board also talked about this, was those auto sale lots. Nobody's really excited about those. That by your ordinance is not going to be allowed on this site. That is for a minimum of 2 acres. We have 0.7 acres. And we're surrounded by conditional districts. So we can't clump this in and make a bigger parcel without coming in front of council asking for permission for rezoning. So it can't be a car lot, it's only 0.7 acres. It can't be a gas station, you can't put a gas station on 0.7 acres. Anything that's going to be kind of those larger regional draws, it's too small of a site. So this is really just small retail as you're going up and down 74, capturing that audience and revitalizing, as you've seen those individual parcels come to be. Again, the ordinance provides protections for the development and the adjacent neighbors. And then we are not aware of any opposition. We had unanimous planning board support as well as planning staff support. I also have Drew here with Durbin Group. I didn't let him say anything. If he has anything to add, he's welcome to, but otherwise we will take questions.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add unless you have any specific questions regarding the Durbin Group.
It's good to hear that's not going to be another call.
I thought you might like that.
Any questions or comments from council?
That's just a question I do have also, because your first presentation, first part, you were going to share some information about the site, and you certainly have, and small retail is all that you mentioned. Would you care, or could you go any further than that, or?
I appreciate the question. So my role is, who I represent is Durbin Group, who is marketing this site. The way to market it and bring the vitality to the site is to have it be flexible enough. We do not have a plan or anything to show you or an end user to talk about. I wouldn't do anything to.
You're just looking at the title.
Yeah, sure, if you'd like to. All right, this is Drew with Durbin. Hold it up.
Evening, Council. My name is Drew Gardner. My address is 1326 Pinecrest Avenue. I'm a land planner project manager for the Durbin Group. Unfortunately, I can tell you right now that because of the point we are in our contract, we aren't at liberty to disclose our tenant. But what I can say is that we're a developer based out of Charlotte. We've done multiple projects in and around the Charlotte MSA and North Carolina that are commercial in nature. We feel we've built a lot of good relationships with communities we've built in, and we are excited for the possibility of being able to develop here in Monroe.
Any other questions, comments? And Ms. Lynn's, just as a technicality, just to make sure I'm clear, you had actually signed up to speak in opposition. I just want to make sure you're good with me moving you over to speaking in
I would
favor.
probably fire me if I did that. That was the sheet I was handed. I apologize.
No problem. We got you covered.
Thank you. That is a very important distinction.
Just want to make
Yes,
sure.
sir.
Okay, I do not have anybody signed up in opposition, so there being no other speakers, I will close the public hearing and move to take action.
Motion to adopt resolution approving land use and transportation plan for fund.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed?
Motion to adopt ordinance amending code section 157.1, non-official zoning map.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. That will pass. Okay, item 8 on the agenda, Code of Ordinances, text amendment to chapter 157, titled EDO 25 Development Ordinance. And at this time, I am going to recognize Ms. Lisa Stover.
Good evening, I'm Lisa Steiger, Director of Planning and Development with the City of Monroe, and I would like to bring before you a request to consider a zoning text amendment to various sections of the Chapter 157 of the City of Monroe Code of Ordinances titled the Unified Development Ordinance. The new Unified Development Ordinance is a consolidated document that contains all of the city's land use and development requirements, and it was adopted April 12, 2022. The goal was to develop a clear and user-friendly unified development ordinance that is consistent with city plans and policies. The UDO is the main tool that implements your future land use plan. It does codified requirements regarding specific uses, density, and site plan requirements that assist in implementing the future land use plan. At the time of adoption of the UDO, planning staff did mention that the UDO is a living, breathing document that from time to time it will need to be revised. So approximately, staff has been working with the Unified Development Ordinance for approximately 6 months now. So through working with the UDO, it has been brought to staff's attention that there are several sections of the Unified Development Ordinance that need some revisions. Some of them are to provide some clarifications, include missing language, and do some slightly minor modifications to the ordinance. Listed on the screen is the various sections that we are requesting to modify. The majority of them are technical in nature, and then others are minor modifications. The first section is related to the section 3, the administration section, and it deals with, there's actually 2 that relates to the Board of Adjustment and Planning Board. The city's Board of Adjustment and Planning Board is required to include a resident of the extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction to serve on each board that represents the ETJ area. Staff realized that requirement was missing from the ordinance for the Board of Adjustment as well as the Planning Board, so we are requesting to add that language back. The next section is also in the administration section related to zoning permits. Language was missing from the UDO that requires a zoning permit for development that does not require an engineer's site plan. An example of that would be in addition to a residential, commercial, or an industrial building. That's just one example, so we're requesting to include that information. Next section is in the mixed-use zoning district parking standards, section 5. We're requesting to remove language from this section. This section was referencing that there should be a separate set of parking standards for mixed-use districts, but when you went to that area, it was missing the parking standards, so we removed that area and referenced the section 8.4, which is the parking and loading standards for all districts within the city. This is a request to actually remove the section 6, the floodplain ordinance, from the Unified Development Ordinance. According to the North Carolina Department of Emergency Management, they have advised that the city that the floodplain ordinance should be a standalone ordinance. So we are requesting to remove the floodplain from the UDO, and then you will hear another public hearing in a few minutes from the engineering department requesting to locate it in one of the engineering ordinances. The table of permissible uses is being requested to be modified to allow upper story residential in the office medical and then personal services, which we felt was an appropriate use in the office medical zoning district. We are also requesting other sections be revised in section 7, the residential uses, commercial and accessory uses. Staff realized that we did not add a minimum lot width for townhomes, so we were requesting 24 feet lot width for townhomes. We also realized that electronic gaming operations were no longer required a conditional district. We required electronic gaming operations a conditional district in the previous ordinance, and that was miscarried forward in the new ordinance. And as far as accessory uses and structures, we are requesting to remove language that requires them to be similar and compatible in appearance with the principal structure, as well as no accessory building can extend in front of the rear line of the dwelling. We do not allow accessory buildings to be extended in front of the front line of the dwelling. And according to state law, planning staff does not have the authority to regulate exterior materials on principal structures, so we can't regulate the materials on accessory structures either.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Back up on the minimum width of 24 feet for a townhouse, how many square feet would that townhouse have? 24 feet seems awful narrow.
It's 24 feet wide.
Well, I mean, if it's 24 feet wide, I mean, they can make it deep, they can make it a lot. This is just a lot, not the town itself. I mean, because obviously the interior units, those are only 24 feet wide, but they can make it a lot deeper, which obviously make the town home larger. But it depends on how they can make the lots truly. So the in units probably would be larger lots, because usually your in units would be bigger, but those that have to be a minimum of 24 feet wide, and 3 interior lots will be a minimum of 24, like this, for how we can make lots, I think, how we can do it for not being.
He said on the 7.5, that doesn't override the historical restrictions.
They are standalone, the guidelines.
What is your, based on 24 feet, how many square feet would you think would be in a townhome? Do you have any idea, Doug?
Well, and one thing too, unless it's done through a rezoning, unless it's done through a rezoning process, we can't regulate the house size. Just like if somebody wants to build a house on XYZ Street right now and come for a permit from the permit center, you know, we used to be able to do that, and we can no longer do that. So if they want to build a 800 square foot house, there's nothing from allows us to do a regulate that. So unless the only way you can regulate it is somebody will do a condition district or apply, definitely won't regulate the house size. Or any type of regulation.
For the townhomes that have already been approved, do you recall what maybe the average square feet that's been approved?
Probably go down about 1,400, probably the minimum. Yeah, usually what we've seen the conditional district job approved in the last several years, the minimum has been probably 1,400 square feet.
The next section that is requested to be modified is the 8.1.5 regarding performance bonds. We are requesting to remove the requirements for maintenance bonds. According to state law, we can no longer require maintenance bonds. And then we're adding the language for bond reductions. And then the subdivision standards, we are adding language regarding private access easements. We didn't have any standards in there that required the width or that they be paved.
So going back to that, how do you determine what street construction minimums are acceptable to the city to take over the subdivision street? That's what that's referring to, right?
The maintenance bond, well, the developers are required to post a performance bond in the form of a letter of credit or surety that guarantees to cover the cost of all the infrastructure improvements for the development. And then we used to be allowed to require the maintenance bonds that would cover any defects of those infrastructure improvements for 1 year after.
But we can't do that now.
We can't do the maintenance bonds, we're no longer allowed to do that. But the city would not, and the taking over the streets is more of an engineering, but the city would not take over those facilities until they met all the engineering requirements.
That doesn't override that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
We are also requesting to modify the sign section to include changeable copy signs to be allowed in the general industrial zoning district. Currently, they are only allowed in the general business zoning district. And then we also realized that there were there was nothing located in the ordinance that allowed monument or community signs for residential neighborhoods. So the neighborhood signs that you see out up front of the residential subdivisions, we did not have that included.
So that changeable copy sign is only allowed in general industrial?
In general business.
General business.
Well, currently in the ordinance, it's allowed in general business. Right now, we're requesting to be allowed in general industrial as well.
In both places.
Yes, ma'am. We are also requesting a modification to the street yard buffers. Currently, the street yard buffers in the ordinance requires a type 2 buffer of 20 feet with trees and shrubs. We are requesting to modify that to a type 1 buffer of 10 feet. Our old ordinance had an 8-foot wide streetscape buffer. We felt 10 feet was appropriate versus 20 feet. We are requesting a modification to the design standards. Currently, within the Unified Development Ordinance, it requires that non-residential buildings that exceeds 5,000 square feet adhere to the design standards. We kind of wanted to bring that down to 2,500 square feet. Next section that we are requesting to modify is the landscaping buffer, fences, and walls. As you can maybe see the perimeter buffer type table here. Some of the modifications was with the type 1 buffer. We are requesting to take it from a 15 feet to a 10 feet in width, and from 2 trees to 3 trees, and then requesting to modify the shrub number from 30 to 20. The other amendment located in this table is with the type 3 and 4 buffer. We are requesting to have an optional component to it for the 6 feet fence. The 6-foot fence or wall, now it would be optional. You could do a 6-foot fence, wall, or berm. The required perimeter buffer type by district is being requested to be modified, and this is basically your table that requires what type of buffer will be located between zoning districts. What we noticed that none of the mixed-use zoning districts were included on the table, so they've been added. And then also we felt some of the commercial or non-residential to non-residential zoning districts, the buffer types were a little too high. So we were requesting modifications there. We did not request any modifications for the residential buffers. The proposed zoning text amendments are consistent with the land use and transportation plan. Planning staff and planning board do recommend approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from council? And I do not have anybody signed up to speak in favor or opposition. So with there being no speakers, I will close the public hearing and move to take action.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. Any of these proposed changes, are they correlated or are they in contradiction to these actions?
If the city council is looking to approve the action, these would be the motions here, or deny the actions, I'm happy to pull this up as well.
Now, most of these changes are ones that we hadn't seen before, is that not correct?
These were all the changes that were presented at the joint and planning board strategic meeting, and they're just going through the normal public hearing process.
You ready for a motion?
Motion to adopt resolution
motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
Motion to adopt ordinance amending sections of code, chapter 157, titled zoning code.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Motion to adopt resolution approving land use and transportation plan compliance for section 8.3 titled landscaping, buffering, fences, and walls of code chapter 157 titled zoning code.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Motion to adopt ordinance amending section 8.3 titled landscaping, buffering, fences, and walls of code chapter 157 titled zoning code.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, item 9 on the agenda, Code of Ordinances, text amendment to chapter 159, titled Stormwater Management Ordinance. At this time, I will recognize Sarah McAllister. Welcome.
Good evening, this is Lisa Big Bucks to work for. So this is just creating a section for the proper way to go in the stormwater management ordinance, chapter 159, as we were advised.
Questions, comments from council?
Is this a public hearing?
Yes, sir. But we'll be after you. If you have any questions for Sarah, then it will be public hearing time.
Any questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. At this time, I do not have anyone signed up to speak in favor or in opposition. There being no speakers, I'll close the public hearing and we can take action.
Motion to adopt ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, moving right along. At this time, I will recognize our city manager, Brian Board, to present the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The City Council uses the consent agenda to consider items that are not controversial and routine. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and voted to council. The consent agenda contains the following items. Item 10 is a request of City Council to approve to add the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence to the Board of Adjustment agendas. Item 11 is the Bobby G. Kilgore Law Enforcement Center. A is to award the award to network cabling contract to Data Communications, Inc. in the amount of $136,893.06 and authorize the city manager to execute any and all documents. B is the award of security access control contract to Allied Universal Technology Services in the amount of $165,255.21 and authorize the city manager to execute any and all necessary documents. Item C is award of shelving storage solutions contract to Greer Interiors for data filing systems in the amount of $133,686.26 and authorize the city manager to execute any and all documents. Greer Interiors or Datum Filing Systems is a purchasing cooperative program available to state and local governments, and this meets the statutory requirements for creating. And item D is, the city manager to execute all of the documents. 12, we have a call for public hearings on December 13, 2022. A is a Pronto and Meet Me Downtown Economic Development Incentive Grant. This is for a downtown business. The public hearing will be held on December 13th. Item B is a provision for Public Utility Regulatory Policies Act, Title I. This is the request for that public hearing on December 13th to consider the provision of Public Utility and Regulatory Policies Act, Title I. It was included in the bipartisan infrastructure law bill. And this is something that council must consider under the provisions for the Title I. Item 13, capital project budget ordinance establishing the work management system project for energy services and water resources. This is a budget ordinance to establish a work management project system. It will appropriate $350,000 from the electric fund balance, $350,000 from the natural gas fund balance, and $100,000 from the water sewer fund balance, and transfer the amounts to the one combined project account in the electric capital project fund to be called Work Management System Project. Item 14 is to change the time of the December 13, 2022 City Council Strategic Planning meeting. This would change the time from 4:30 to 4 p.m. in order to allow adequate time for presentations and discussions. Item 15, Electricities of North Carolina Inc. System Betterment Grant. This is to seek approval or acceptance of the System Betterment Grant of $5,000 from Electricities of North Carolina Inc. and approve a budget amendment to designate and appropriate said funds. This was presented to Public Enterprise Committee and approved. Item 16 is an ordinance amending fiscal year 22-23 fee schedule to add rates for the implementation of LED lighting through attrition. This is to update the fee schedule, and it would include rates for the implementation of the LED lighting through attrition. The fee schedule will continue to provide rates for the existing legacy mercury vapor, metal halide, and high-pressure sodium lights that remain in operation. And it provides the rates for the LED replacements once these fail. This item was presented to General Services Committee and approved. Item 17 is a resolution to adopt expressing appreciation to Tom Brown for his service to the city of Monroe over the past 26 years and extending best wishes on his retirement. The resolution will be presented to Tom at a later date. Item 18, the tax releases for September 22 are in the amount of $464.53. And that concludes the consent agenda items.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. And next, I'm going to ask our City Manager Brian Warren to present the informational items. These do not require council action. And for those following along, we're on item 19 of the agenda. Okay, item 19, there are A through G are various committee and board minutes and reports. Item 20, we have a disbursement of City Council discretionary funds. We have a disbursement by Mayor Pro Tem Gary Anderson in the amount of $200 to Union County Crisis Assistance Ministry. And we have another disbursement from Council Member Lynn Keziah in the amount of $201,000 to Union County Crisis Assistance Ministry and Community Health Services of Union County, respectively.
I'm sorry, $201,000.
$200,000. $201,000. Did I say something?
Yeah, it's 200.
$201,000.
So $1,200.
$1,200 total, yeah. $200 to crisis assistance and $1,000 to health services.
Okay, there we go.
I'm reading to.
As long as I got enough in there to cover it.
Yes,
Okay, we have 21 financial reports. We have an unassigned general fund balance of $1,338,802, and assigned to general fund balance is $2,750,249. That's it for information. Those bigger numbers are easier to read.
Thank you.
All right, at this time we'll move on to item 22, and we're moving on to the regular agenda. This is a North Carolina Highway Historical Marker request for Robert Franklin Williams. This time I am again going to recognize City Manager Brian Bourne to introduce a request for a letter of support from the City of Monroe to North Carolina Historical Marker Program.
Thank you. The Highway Historical Marker would commemorate Robert Franklin Williams for being a civil rights leader, activist, and champion of armed self-defense for African Americans. Mr. Williams was born and lived in Monroe for many years. He served in the U.S. Army and Marine Corps, acted as president of the Monroe chapter of the NAACP, engaged in public debate with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. about nonviolence, and lived in political exile in China and initially Cuba, where he broadcast Radio Free Dixie to the American South. His organization of Monroe's African American community in resisting racial oppression, along with his pointed critiques of American imperialism and racism, inspired the radical younger generation of African American activists and leaders. The final wording on the marker will be determined by the state. The proposed location is at the intersection of US 74 and 601 West Roosevelt Boulevard and Boyd Street in Monroe on the southeast corner in front of the Pizza Hut. The marker will not be located on city property. A letter of support from the mayor is requested to go with an application for the historical marker. A letter of support from A Few Good Men, Inc. and the Union County NAACP are in your packets. This request was presented to General Services Committee and approved on November 3rd, 2022. And the recommendation from General Services and staff requests that council consider public input and approve a letter of support from the mayor to accompany the application for a historical highway marker.
And again, that was recommended unanimously by the General Services Committee to move this item on to council. So at this time, can I have a motion?
Motion to authorize the mayor to sign the letter of support.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
All right, I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? That was unanimous, right? Okay. Item 23, Unified Development Ordinance Amendments. I'm going to try to stay on script here to present this as clearly and as transparent as possible. Myself, along with some other members of council, have requested a discussion on proposed additional amendments to the UDO in addition to those proposed by staff and council considered earlier. In looking at these issues, several of us would like to consider those issues, and these issues are different than the ones we conducted in a public hearing earlier. Because the new issues were not part of the public hearing, council cannot approve changes to our UDO related to those issues today. But as a council, we will discuss those issues this evening. Just so everyone understands, in order for the city to follow the state law, the next step would be for council or members of the council to start a text amendment process. The text amendment process makes sure that the proposed amendments are considered by the planning board. The planning board provides a recommendation to city council. The amendments are advertised, and then an advertised public hearing is held before the council. After we discuss these issues tonight, the majority of council wishes to pursue the additional amendments as a text amendment. Council will vote to initiate the text amendment process. Staff will then start that process, which will require planning board input before coming to council for consideration, including a duly noticed public hearing. And if after we discuss the issues, a majority of council does not want to pursue a text amendment, members of council may ask the planning staff to begin the text amendment process. This will be the same process as if council voted to pursue a text amendment. It will require planning board input, a public hearing before city council, and then council consideration. Finally, if the text amendment is pursued, the city will need to have planning staff and our attorney's office review the proposed additional amendments to determine if the amendments comply with Chapter 160D of the general statutes. So basically, you all saw that we had some text amendments today. Those amendments went through a process. So this is an effort to initiate that process once again. Here are the things that I would like to discuss. The UDO currently reads that the conservation subdivision plan shall be reviewed and approved or approved with conditions by the director in accordance with the standards of this section. Let me stop there to say I feel like our planning board today is probably the strongest board we've ever had. They do a great job. And not only that, but they have taken not so good projects and turned them down. They've taken mediocre projects and said, okay, well, we got to get it to a good project. And then they've taken a good project and said, we need to get it to a great project. And they work very hard and diligently to do that. And I think that we're at a point with developments in our city where we can be a little more picky and choosy with the expectations that we place on our developers. I think that we need to be looking at not mediocre projects, not good projects, but great projects. And I can tell you that within the last 4 or 5 months, the projects that have been coming to council, we could tell that the planning board really put a lot of effort into working with the developer, which is ultimately what it's all about, to produce a great project that we and you as citizens can be proud of. So ultimately, all I want to do is make sure that developments are going through the planning board and then they're coming to council for approval. And I want to be able that if someone calls me and says, there's a bulldozer in close proximity to my house and it's knocking down trees, I want to be able to say, yes, I know about that. And here's the process that it went through to get to that stage. What I don't want to have to tell a citizen is, I don't know anything about that, because that makes us all look bad. And the bottom line is, we all know that once the trees are taken down and the development starts, you can't put those trees back. And you can't stop that process once it's in the works. So, very simply put, I would like, and I welcome discussion from my other council members, but I would like for Monroe UDO section 8.1.9C, and I know that doesn't mean a lot to those not looking at the document, but I'm required to read that as a technicality. But the conservation subdivision plan shall be reviewed and approved or approved with conditions using the same process as conditional zoning defined in section 4.6, conditional zoning, and treated as a zoning map amendment described in 3.4.6 zoning map amendment. Basically, in a nutshell, I'm trying to say the developments need to go through a review process. And I'm not taking or trying to take authority away from anybody. But the reality is, council was elected by the citizens to review these processes. And I simply want to make sure that a review is being done and that the planning board has an opportunity, council has an opportunity, and that there's public input, that there's a public hearing before a development is signed off on. Now, I'm sure that there are legal ways to perfect what I just said, and that's why I rely heavily on our legal department to do that. But that's the first change I would like for council to consider. And at this time, I'm going to just pause and see if anybody else has comments.
I would like to make a motion that we go that route that you just explained.
I would second that with a friendly amendment to also include the changes to section 3.4.15 on cluster development, also putting that under the purview of council and planning.
Would this also include the area under these, just make sure for clarification for me, that Mrs. Helms was addressed as far as police concerned, those apartments that may or may not go there?
They would automatically go through that process. Is that not correct? Mr. Falcone, or?
Well, the borough planning director.
The apartment.
Well, we're just not even in play here, but.
Well, and just to touch on how section 7, the table of permissible uses, works. So you have a table of uses, whether it's commercial, residential, industrial, office, and it lists out all kinds of uses. And then you have your districts at the top. And then within that table, you have an area where it's prohibited, it's permitted by right, which it would go through a staff level review process, and or an S that would require special use process by the Board of Adjustment. So that anything that has a P in that table of uses is a use that's allowed by right. A retail restaurant allowed in the general business district is a use allowed by right that would go through a staff level review, reviewed by the water department, energy department, planning, building, fire. Currently, apartments are a use under the current ordinance allowed in the general business district.
Let me go ahead and I think this gets the answer to the question. The exchange project is the one that it was referred to. they've already applied, they already submitted an application, that are they already in the process?
We are, yes.
And that would mean, Councilmember Gordon, that even if there are changes to the ordinance, they get the benefit of the ordinance as it is today, because that's the way it works. They have the benefit of the ordinance when they apply, not if you make changes. You can't change. It's not NASCAR. You can't change the rules in the middle of the race.
Another thing to add to this too, I personally don't want to see us with 50 million apartments and townhouses. And if that, by right, is going to allow that, we need to revisit that, because we've got too damn good a town to just sit there and watch us be inundated. My personal opinion.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Keziah, with respect to your motion, I think, is your intention actually to begin the text memo process?
Yes.
Because I think, would you be willing to amend your motion to be that you would ask that staff begin the text memo process as discussed during this presentation?
Yes.
Second.
And if the seconder would agree to that, President.
Second.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, I think then the ordinance, that would be modified. And of course, as you pointed out, it would require many to take a look, see what would be required. Because one thing that staff has surprised council on, and maybe the members of the planning board who look over this or others are not aware of, is that Chapter 160B doesn't permit the city to force someone to go on condition of this. That's an important thing to know. So that's one thing we would take a look at, as you pointed out. We'll look for creative solutions, but you've got a motion and a second, whatever you wish to do on that, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. If you wish to have further discussion by the council, we'll go out and call for the vote.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second.
I think Councilmember Gordon may have, yes, sir.
Any other
Well,
comments?
the question still remains, and I think there is some uncertainty here as to what you're recommending and to something that is existing. A petition to develop the city system. Now, the way I understand that, in general business zoning, which apparently this property is all zoned GB. Are we back to the recon?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Then, this text amendment would not apply.
Is there any?
Right now, what it's doing is bringing it before planning board and council.
No.
No,
No, it's not.
no, sir, it would
No.
not. And Councilmember Gordon is correct, because they have applied, they are under the ordinance that exists now.
No, I'm talking about going forward.
Yeah, it would be going forward if you made changes and text amendment, but this would not affect, I think Councilmember Gordon's point though is, it would not affect the issue Ms. Helms raised earlier, but I think council's aware of that.
So I understand that. So then if those apartments will go then through planning?
No.
No, I mean, not through planning, through the staff for approval and making sure they meet all the requirements they need to meet before they do it? How will that work?
Craig, once a project is submitted, it is distributed to each department to review the submittal based on their ordinances. So water and sewer, energy services, electric and gas, fire, planning, under our unified development ordinances, how we would review the project, and then building standards. So once they're reviewed, the project doesn't move forward unless it meets all the requirements of every department's ordinance.
Then is there since I don't know this, she referenced several numbers that she had heard that were going to be built there. I mean, how is that determined? For 200 versus 350 something, whatever two numbers, how's that determined?
The general business district only allows 10 units per acre.
Okay.
So it can't be any greater than 10 units per acre. And they propose variations of this project along the way, from the previous conditional district that was denied to, they thought they were going to have additional property and it was going to be higher density to what it is now. So we can't recall how many units was proposed right now. We'll be happy to get that to you.
That would be great. That way I'd like to be able to communicate what's really fact, because this was part of the problem there too in a neighborhood meeting, and I don't know who said it. I just know it was someone in the, the developing end of things told the neighbors there in the meeting, there were several there, that they couldn't do a thing about anything that was going on. It's like,
they have to meet the ordinance.
they do, I understand that, but to, the citizens, it's like, well, what do you mean? What does that mean? So I want to be able to tell them, I'm asking, I'm sure I will be, what does it really look like? What is it going to, once it reaches you all, what is it going to look like in the end versus what they're imagining things about all the way around them and flood their yards, all this kind of stuff. So,
Well, just under the Unified Development Ordinance, for example, they'll be required to meet the commercial design guidelines,
Right.
open space requirements, landscaping and buffering, signage, specific density of 10 units per acre. So there's lots of measures in place now versus what we had before for these type of developments. But I do have one clarification, if I may ask. So moving forward with the proposed text amendment, the cluster subdivisions, the conservation subdivisions, conditional district, and then requiring conditional district for multifamily in the general business district. Is that the proposed? I just want to make sure that staff knows our direction from council.
Can I make another comment? The first one is the planning board, city council gets involved at in the final stages. I think we need to add into that by right, we need to have a joint meeting with the planning board and staff, and we need to get this thing right. I'm telling you, we're going to be inundated, and we don't need to be inundated. And I think we need to do it right now. I'm dead serious. I think we need to address that issue. I mean, we got to have some backbone, guys.
that's right.
I mean, heck, I want to see development too, but I want to see it in the right way.
Yes.
And that's nothing wrong with us putting a hold. If it's already started, that's fine. But if it's not, we need to have staff prepare a joint meeting between us and the planning board and staff and sit down and decide what we want. Because none of us knew this was where it was at, did we? Did you know it, Gary? So how do I do that, G?
No, what?
I think we also need to dig in right now on permitted, or what do you call it?
By right.
By right.
With respect, you can't make a change that would eliminate by right.
I didn't say you would.
I just
but
want to
you
make,
can-
but I want to be perfectly clear because
But you can
I think
make
there's
sure
some
that-
that may not understand what council's been advised, that you cannot make that change.
No, but you can cut the density down and make it more appealing to what we want here. I'm not saying do away with it, I'm saying put a little common sense in it where we're not just completely smashed. In 10 years from now, a lot of us won't be around here, but the rest of you will.
Okay, so,
Well, there's nothing in this that Gary has read. There's nothing in this that's going to have any restrictions on density or things of that nature. Is that not right? Right here it is. Well, read it. I didn't hear that word mentioned.
What was, I believe, presented was that cluster subdivisions and conservation subdivisions wanted to go through the conditional district zoning process that would be a review by planning board, a review by council, and public input.
Right.
And the
It
density.
doesn't say anything about giving you authority for density, does it?
Yeah.
No, sir.
I didn't think so.
But if it goes through that process, we would be in on that. That
But
would
you
be
know,
part of the decision making, would it not? Yeah. It would.
it's the joint meeting with planning board, staff, and city council on by right would be awful good. We didn't have nothing like that before. I don't know exactly where
So
we'll end up.
let's do this. We have a motion and a second on the floor to direct staff to start looking at the text amendment that I outlined today. Let's vote on that. And then I think we're also in agreement that we would like a joint meeting in the near future with the planning board.
And staff.
And staff, obviously. Fair. So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Okay, great. Thank you, and I appreciate everybody's input on the discussion. The bottom line is that we want to get this right. We know that things are going to come up. We have to be willing, when things come up, to talk about it, to engage in a discussion, to hold joint meetings, to meet with staff, to be transparent. All of those things are what we're trying to accomplish regarding this UDO. And I think tonight was a good first step in that direction. Okay, that's all the agenda items. Let me just say real quick before we adjourn, since this is the last meeting technically before the Thanksgiving holiday, we certainly want to wish all of our citizens a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. A lot of great things happening around Monroe. Check out the website for information about the tree lighting, the parade, events at the Dow Theater. And also I'd like to thank our staff. Let's not forget that even though Thanksgiving is a holiday to most, we still have a lot of staff members that are working that day to serve our citizens. Certainly, police and fire still work a regular 12-hour shift that day. They come in at 6 o'clock in the morning, they get off at 6 o'clock at night, and then another crew comes in at 6 o'clock that night. For police, for fire, they're working a 24-hour shift that day. So not only that, but water resources, our electrical division, the bottom line is we still occasionally have a tree limb that could fall on the power line on Thanksgiving. Somebody's cooking their Thanksgiving
My phone just rang, and there's a bulldozer at your house.
But anyway, just thank you to our staff for what you do. We wish everybody a very happy and safe Thanksgiving.
Like to comment about the mayor, Mayor Monroe. He's experiencing a lot of pain. They can't quite pin it down. They're going to take him to Charlotte tomorrow to work on it some more, so your prayers would be appreciated.
Yes. Okay. Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, raise your right hand.